Was that your stuff?
What? I don't know if I'm hungry or about to shit myself. G'day and welcome to episode 1 of Guns, Hoses and Stretchers.
Oh, fuck, I wrote staging area wrong. No, I'm joking. Are you going to ask questions straight up? So you're just going to say, welcome to episode 2, we're talking about this, and then bam, fire into
I'll shut the fuck up. G'day and welcome to episode 4 of the staging area. I'm Hayden Mack. This is Simon Roylance.
Hello.
And we are back with another episode.
Staging area.
Finally. A lot of backlash on the on the TikToks. Holy fuck. I don't know.
We're happy.
It's a strange world out on the TikTok world.
It can be strange. It can be strange. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I think some of the comments on TikTok have been like some of it's been all right. I don't really pay too much attention to it, to be honest. Yeah. But I will say some of the comments have been okay. And there is some people who have put comments up there and probably corrected us, and that's fine. I got no issues with that because they were right. We knew some of that information already, but we probably didn't put it out there the way we probably should.
When you say we, you mean you?
Me, not Hados, not the director. There was a few things in there that we didn't elaborate or put enough context in, which is one of the things that we want to get better at. I think.
We want as much controversy around this show as we can get, because, well, basically, if they don't like it, someone's going to write something to the Herald Sun or the ABC. Oh, you've moved the microphone again.
I didn't touch the microphone.
Yeah. You sure did, boy.
You need new equipment.
Yes.
Is it working?
You just moved it again. Fuck me. Don't touch it.
Well, you need to put it where it needs to be. It feels weird that's better.
Okay.
Weird. That was creepy.
Yes. Sorry for the audio experience for our listeners.
It's going to change.
What were we saying? TikTok, yeah. Yeah, we need a bit of controversy. And then somebody will write something to the letter of the editor in the Herald Sun and we'll get more traction.
I'm not sure if I'm trying to get controversy for traction.
No,
we're trying to have good conversations. Good conversations, talking about topics, filling in some blanks, although I probably didn't fill enough blanks for some people, according to the TikToks. I think some people think I'm a nutcase. That's okay. I'm happy with that. There's been a lot of people who think
you're
I'm
a nutcase with no police experience whatsoever.
None.
Even though, how long did you work for VicPol for?
7 years all up.
Yeah, right.
7 years all up, and I still do investigations now, not for VicPol, but for other aspects.
Okay.
So, but that's okay. That's all right. Look, everyone has their opinions. Every person is entitled to their opinion. I just think that there is some things on TikTok that probably weren't appropriate, and we've actually got to look at removing some of those things because you could argue that some people threaten people, and we don't like that sort of stuff. We want robust conversations and debates, and we're happy for people to say, hey, I think this is incorrect or whatever. But if you're going to come after people, attack people, and be inappropriate, then we're probably going to remove that stuff because we're not interested in that sort of bullshit. So what we're doing this for.
Yeah. Well,
which is kind of going to go. Which is going to go to our topic today.
This topic this week is media and politics. As somebody who has also ran for politics,
yes,
yes, we'll talk a bit about that a bit later.
Surely, I thought we would eventually.
All right. Well, later in this show.
All
right.
Sounds good.
But first, I thought we'll get myself talking because apparently I didn't talk enough in the last couple of episodes.
No, there's been a lot of backlash about that as well, mate.
Because apparently
somebody doesn't shut the
somebody doesn't shut the fuck up. Okay?
Yeah, so I'm going to shut up.
And so I thought, what will I do? And as an experienced media personality...
That's true too.
I thought I'll do the old style of what I used to do.
Okay, here we go.
And used to talk about funny stories.
All
right. Okay. So now that we've got a bit of a niche,
This is not quite where I thought this was going to go, but that's all right.
Yeah. Well,
let's do it.
Fucking brace yourself.
Here we
Strap
go.
yourself in.
I'm
You're
strapped.
in for a fucking experience.
Oh, here we go. I'm excited.
All right, so these are from a very long time ago.
Oh, okay.
All right, this happened in 2019.
Jesus.
All
It's not
right.
that long ago, but yeah, feels a long time ago.
So the headline is man's work trip, sex death ruled workplace accident.
Oh, I remember this
Have you
story.
heard this
I
one?
remember this story. Was this a politician? No.
Oh no, it
It
wasn't.
was the guy that went and got a prostitute.
Let me tell you the fucking story.
Talk.
Yes, he did get a
You
prostitute.
speak. You speak.
A French court has ruled the employer of a man who died while having sex on a business trip is financially responsible for his death. The man, identified only as Xavier X, was a railway technician who was on a business trip in France's Lorette province in 2013. So this happened all those
long
years
time
ago.
ago.
And so 2019, they finally went, oh, let's make a decision.
Yeah, took a while.
So that's a long court case.
French, they like to have their breaks.
Yeah, right.
And those railway lads, they're,
Probably working hard.
I would say so.
Working hard at work
normally pretty
and
tough
in the
lads.
bedroom. According to court documents, the married man, met another woman at a bar, and the pair went back to his hotel room.
Wait, so is she a prostitute or not? I thought she was a prostitute. She's
Oh,
not a prostitute.
Probably not. Then.
Wow. It's got even worse. Because now I'm thinking, like, can she, if, like, would she
So-
be able to then claim for, like,
I don't know.
damages for what she saw? But anyway.
Well, anyway, they went back to his hotel room to have some sex. That was a report from local news site BFM TV at the time. Xavier X had a heart attack and died before emergency services arrived. A claim was made for compensation over Xavier X's death, but insurers argued that sexual intercourse is a part of everyday life and therefore his company were not financially responsible. TSO, the railway company the man worked for, argued that they were not responsible for his death because his heart attack was not connected to the work he was being paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously sex not in his
No,
in his
position
contract.
description?
Yeah.
That's fair enough. I mean, I can see why.
However, French judges dismissed this argument, ruling it a case of an accident du travail. Accident du travail, I'm going to assume. Meaning,
Meaning an accident
if
when he was
an
travelling.
employee is travelling for work, they are still the responsibility of their employer, even when off duty. The man's family will now receive up to 80% of his annual salary for years to come because of the court's decision. So they're
That-
probably...
Seems really unfair for that company.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, like, fuck. You
But-
go on a work trip, and then when you knock off at the end of the day, I get you're still away from home and all that sort of stuff. I get all of that, but you get allowances and things when you're away from home from work. So, but when you knock off, how's it the employer's fault if you went and hooked up with some chick in a bar, went back, did the dirty, you die, you have a heart attack and you die during the process, which I just think's interesting in itself. But how's that the employer's fault?
Well, just don't have sex on a work...
On a work
actually, have all the sex you want on a work trip.
Just don't die.
Claim it on tax.
So, well, hang on, that's a point though. Here's the thing: in France, because I don't reckon that would stand here in Australia. I don't think you'd get that. But if you're in France, have as much sex as you can while you're on a work holiday. Buy toys that you need for at home. If you love that sort of stuff,
Well-
go get it. Buy your toys, claim it on tax,
Yeah.
and just use that as case. So, well, according to them, I was on a work trip. If this can happen, why can't I claim my new sex toys?
Well, I didn't
I didn't
claim...
think we were ever going to go down this. I didn't think I'd ever think I was going to use the word sex toy on this podcast, but we're here
Well,
and we're 4 episodes in and
yeah.
we're here.
We are here. and sadly we're talking about it.
That's not sad.
Oh no,
It's a part of life, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
Good part of
that's
life.
true. But yeah, that was a bit of funny news, eh? Wacky. Because apparently I don't talk enough. So that's what I'm going to
That's what you're contributing. And now he's just going to be quiet for the rest of it.
That's right. You
No,
take
you're not.
over now, Simon.
Nope.
We're going to now talk about politics and media. So, media and politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably saw that they go hand in hand in some sort of way.
Mm.
So
Influence each other.
they influence
I
each
would
other.
suggest,
Okay.
yeah.
So what makes you think that? What makes you think that?
I think it's just. I mean, it's not. You could probably use a heap of examples from the last couple of years. Like if you have a look at all the COVID stuff and lots of things, the war that's going on in Ukraine and Russia at the moment, COVID, policing matters, defense matters. These issues between America and China, and then there's the I guess there's lots of things happening around the world right now, and has been for a number of years, where you can really draw some conclusions that media and politics have blurred the lines and are supporting or helping one another to deliver messages that probably aren't correct. And I think if you look at, there's been a bit of a surge, a bit of an uprising. I don't know maybe an uprising if you call it that, of independent media over the last couple of years, who have been able to very successfully challenge mainstream media and challenge politicians with the messages that they're delivering, that the two of them are delivering hand in hand with one another. And if you happen to not agree with that, then they either try and shut down that small independent media, or, as we know, in the state where we live, you might happen to get your media credentials cancelled and potentially kicked out of interviews or conferences, media conferences or briefings, because you're going to ask difficult questions and challenge what's being said. And I think it's a dangerous place we've gone into. You look at like years ago, and again, tell me if you don't agree, but years ago, I think when you listened to a news story or you read something in the newspaper, you could almost say that, most of it was factual. Most of it was good evidence, clear evidence. It made sense. It didn't seem like they were trying to sensationalise anything. It's just like, this is what the story was. Now I feel like that's just everything's sensationalised. Everything's, depending on who's paying the right amount of money or the right amount of attention, that's how they direct or dictate the stories these days. And it's, I just think it's harmful. It's harmful to the community, is my belief.
Okay. So, now also, you also reckon that this affects the services?
100%.
So, politics and media can also affect emergency services, military, and all that.
Certainly does.
Fuck, I've lost my train of thought. So,
Saw a shiny ball?
what? No, I didn't see it. No, fuck off. Stop throwing me off track.
It does, though. If I quickly answer your question that you've kind of asked, it does impact the services, because quite often we see, and we know, again, we've seen this plenty of times before, where, let's just take the police, for instance, because they're the ones who probably cop it the most. There'll be some kind of incident involving the public and the police. The media only ever shows you the bit that is going to make the story. So they work out which way they're trying to go with their story, or who it is that whatever the politics needs them to play whatever game, and they'll either show you really bad behaviour by, say, we'll take protesters, or a perfect example, they'll either show you really bad behaviour by protesters, or they'll show you really bad behaviour by police, but they don't show you the bit in between that, had they showed you either side of that, it would give the actual footage they've shown you a completely different context. But they don't do that because it's not going to sell their story. It's not going to make things good. And then they never correct it. They never tell you that later on, oh, well, this is what it was actually taking place. They just show you that bit to sensationalise their story, make it look good for what they need, whatever their message they're trying to deliver. But they don't tell you the full thing, because if they told you the full thing, their story or their edit or their requirement wouldn't be as good as what it is.
So why do you reckon police cop it more?
I think in general, police probably cop it more because there's already a level of misunderstanding between the community and police about how police operate and what police are there to do, and vice versa. And police are often used by pawns. They're often used as political pawns. And so, to be honest, they become very easy targets. And they're a target that people can get very emotionally, attached to or strike out at. So it's easy. They're a sitting duck, literally. And the media seems to play with that a fair bit.
Okay. What about politics? What harm has politics had on the services, do you reckon?
I think if you look at all the states, at some point in time, politics have engaged themselves with the services and done things based on what a particular section of the service wants, or particular people in ranked positions wants, not necessarily what is right for the organisation and not what's necessarily right for the community. So, in some states, the emergency services get along pretty well. Not in every state, but in most states, the emergency services get along pretty well, including ours here. When there's a time of need, when there's an emergency, we get along pretty well. But in the background, there can be a lot of things going on that separate those organisations, and that's generally driven by political decisions. And the media certainly drives it. If you have a look at, here in Victoria, depending on which newspaper you read, will depend on how much they support the fire services, the volunteers versus the paid fire service, where other papers will, be the complete opposite to that. They'll be, looking after another particular side of the fire service, whatever it may be. So it's not good in that sense because it can cause harm and it can cause rift within organisations. And again, when they put their stories out there, quite often they deliberately leave out facts that they know would turn their story in a different direction. But by leaving those facts out, they cause harm or they cause risks within those organisations. And that's not appropriate.
Well, what service, or which service, do you reckon is looked after by government more?
Oh, to be honest, mate, I reckon every service could probably argue that they're worst off, but I would say that there's components of the fire service which are probably looked after better than the rest of them.
So that's obviously through a state level.
On a state level, yeah, because federally they don't really get involved a great deal. They should. We've had that conversation before, but from a state level, and that's not in every state either. Like some other states would probably argue that maybe their fire.
So you're talking from Victoria.
I'm talking from a Victorian perspective. Yeah. From a Victorian perspective, there's aspects of the Victorian fire services that get looked after better than the others. In saying that, even and this is, I guess, is where it's having that benefit of seeing both sides of the fence. But then within those fire services, they would probably still argue that they're not getting well looked after because of other things that are going on that politics is directing and maybe media is also kind of infiltrating. So, and this is the thing, if we put them all in a room together, they probably all have the exact same issues with one another, but the media and the politics tries to separate them a little bit because if you, again, I think we've said this before, but if you separate your masses, you separate your communities, then they're easy to control. So that's what they do, and they do that internally within these organisations as well, which is it's dangerous.
Now, you've also had a bit of experience with both the media and politics, as you represented One Nation in the 2016 election?
2016 federal election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so you wanted to become a politician or a senator for the state.
Yep.
What was the key issue that made you want to run for politics in the first place?
My key issue, the thing that started me off was definitely the emergency services and law enforcement and military. I had a lot of concerns in that space, and I thought things needed to change because I still think to this, we've spoken about it before, and it's very evident at the moment, again, all these years later, we're going down a path that I don't think is great for our emergency services, law enforcement or military, or for our communities in that space. So I wanted to look at how I could help in that space. Then as I started to research and get involved in it, I started to see people started to reach out very quickly. I was actually surprised how quickly people reached out, people I didn't know who reached out going, oh, you're running at the next federal election. Initially, I was running as for the local MP position here in, it was going to be the seat of McEwen. So I was originally running for that when I lived here at the time and whatever else. So I was going to be running for that local seat. And very quickly people started to reach out, saying we've tried to reach out to Labor in the past. The then sitting, or he still is now, the sitting politician for McEwen. We've reached out to him, and they're not helping in this space, or they don't think it's not important to them, or whatever it may be. And I then I started to get lots of stuff coming through from lots of different people, lots of police and emergency services and military people from right around the country starting to reach out through contacts to say, we heard that you're going to try and do these things. Many of them were sending on their best wishes because they knew that these things needed help, but they were also letting me know of issues that I should probably be aware of. And then it flew on. It sort of flowed on from there. I started to have teachers reaching out saying there's massive issues in the education department that nobody wants to talk about. Can you raise these issues? And it snowballed. And then I went from being the candidate for McEwen. There was some issues, and I have to be honest, I don't know the full degree of these issues, of what these issues were. But our then lead Senate candidate for the party, she had to resign from the party and had to step down. She was a councillor up at Bendigo at the time, and there was a heap of media issues around her at the time, and I'm not actually sure what took place, but she stood down, and the members of the Victorian side of our party, I suppose, very quickly spoke up and said, we want Simon to run as the lead Senate candidate. So overnight, I went from being the representative for McEwen or the potential candidate for McEwen to being the state Senate lead for One Nation here in Victoria. So
if they were your key issues that you wanted to fix,
initially, yep.
Why did you choose One Nation to run for and not start your own political party or go to another political party?
Yeah, I guess, to be honest, I didn't know, it's going to sound strange, but I didn't know enough about politics and enough about the process when I first thought I might do this. So it was kind of like, one day I'm going to do this, I'm going to have a crack at this, I'm going to see if I can help people. So I've always been in roles where I've helped people, and this just seemed like another way of helping people and really having a crack. And I was a little bit tired of the current politicians because I honestly think most of them, not all, because there's some great ones out there, but most of them I think are a waste of space. So I thought I'd get in there and have a crack and see if I can help people. I was looking around, didn't really know much about the independent process, and I looked at how do I start my own party. That process seemed like it could be lengthy and difficult, and we may not be able to get ourselves prepared and available in time to then challenge at that upcoming election. So I was looking at other parties, and I had a family friend reach out and say, hey, have you thought about Pauline Hanson and the One Nation Party? I had always had an interest in Pauline, I guess you could say. I think, again, media did a very good job at making her out to be someone that she wasn't. And I did agree with a number of her policies, not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but I did agree with some of her policies. And I'm not talking about her original policies back in the 90s when she got herself in a whole heap of trouble for, saying that we were being flooded by Asians. I didn't believe a lot of that hype around that stuff. A lot of her other policies at the time were really good. I believed them. I wasn't happy with what Liberal and Labor were putting on the table. I'd spoken with Liberal and Labor, and I was not happy with what they were putting on the table. There's a couple of other... I'm not a fan of the Greens, although I will say that I've seen some Green politicians in the last 6 months who I think are really good. I hope that they can do really well in what they're doing, but for the majority of the space of the Greens, I wasn't a fan. So I just sort of looked around, and Pauline's party seemed to resonate with me with some of the stuff that they were talking about. You know, better apprenticeship programs for kids, potential national service for young kids to try and get kids off the street and give them some skills to try and get them into the workforce a bit better. They had some policies around water policies for farmers and things like that, which I agreed with. So none of the others seemed to be putting these policies forward, and these were things that I believed was necessary. So it didn't take much for a connection to be made, and next minute I was at Bendigo meeting Pauline, and then on the TV that night as being announced as the McEwen candidate, and then I think it was maybe 3 weeks later I was announced as a Senate lead. So it's kind of where we ended up there.
What was your media experience like through that time frame?
It was it's disgusting, mate. To be honest, like it was really poor. We wrote a number of submissions to papers and other people with news briefs or news articles. They wouldn't get published. They wouldn't contact us. They wouldn't talk to us. A couple of times we attempted to get onto radio. They wouldn't talk to us either. Then they didn't want to know about us. We had very minimal news interaction. We pushed. They would just ignore. They didn't want to know about it. There was one time where I was on 3AW, and I wouldn't say... the conversation between myself and Neil Mitchell started off all right, but very quickly became about trying to attack me and the party for being racists, which is kind of standard in that space.
Okay.
I don't know if he really was trying to say that I was racist, but I just think I don't think he has a liking for Pauline, so he very quickly was trying to make me seem like I didn't know what I was talking about, or that my opinions weren't of value, sort of thing. So, which was disappointing because I was always a big fan of Neil. It's kind of threw me off a little bit. But then when Pauline came here, we had a week-long tour around Victoria, going to a number of regional locations. All of a sudden, once she was here in Victoria and she was doing the tour, now the radio stations and the local news stations wanted to talk to us, which was really frustrating. But that was okay because we went along with it because we needed the airtime. We needed people to know that we were here. But again, what was frustrating about that was they tried to frame everything to us being racists. So they tried to frame everything to, saying that at the time they were talking a lot about terrorists and things like that, and what did she think of Muslims, because she'd made some comments around Muslims and stuff like that, which again had been taken out of context. When we were up in Shepparton, we had a huge cohort of the Muslim community come out to support us because they believed in what she was saying at the time. So they came out to support us, and they were really good. But the media didn't want to show that. They didn't want to show these people talking, saying, no, we believe in what she's saying because we don't want those dramas. We want to have a really, we want to be connected with the community here and, whatever it may have been. We went to the western side of the state. They just purely tried to attack us for being racists. Didn't want to talk about our policies. Every question came back to, why does she not like Asians? Why does she not like Muslims? Why did she want to be just, white? How is she not any different to Hitler? All these sorts of things. Like, this was the shit they were coming up with. They didn't want to talk about the policies that we were trying to put forward that were going to help youth get jobs and get training. They didn't want to talk about, national defence or emergency service or law enforcement type matters. They didn't want to talk about roads and the issues we've got with our roads. They didn't want to talk about infrastructure. They didn't want to talk about education. It's just racism. So it was hard. Paul Murray on Sky News is the only one who actually gave us a chance, because he always gives the independent, or he did back then, always gave the independents and minor parties a chance to have their say. So we were lucky to go on his program a couple of times, and he mentioned us on a couple of occasions. Once it was announced that I would be a senator for Victoria, because we had got enough votes for me to win my seat, the phone that morning went off the hook. The Herald Sun, Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, 3AW were ringing. It felt like every couple of minutes 3AW were wanting to get an interview with me to go on the Neil Mitchell show to talk about my stance on things. All these people who didn't want to know us, didn't want to talk about us, once we got announced, all of a sudden they all wanted to have a piece of the action. The only one who was given an opportunity was the Herald Sun.
Okay.
Because they were they had previously spoken about my campaign, and so they were the only ones who were actually given the opportunity to interview me that morning, which I still to this day think was probably a bad move, but not for them. They did a great story. I think his name was Rob, did a fantastic story. I think it was a bad move that we didn't talk to all the others as well, because it would have given us an opportunity to potentially either highlight their behaviour or at least get our message across that we were here to try and do some great things for the community.
All right, so because you didn't talk to everyone, who did that come from? Did you have a media advisor?
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't coming from Pauline herself. I don't talk to these people. What do you reckon?
I'm not 100%. It wasn't coming from her, but yeah, it was.
So it was your media advisor.
Yeah, it was a media advisor who reports directly to her. So I'm pretty sure it was coming directly from them.
So you didn't have a say who you could talk to?
Not really.
No, okay.
Not really. Yeah, which was again very frustrating because there was some issues throughout my campaign where I think they interfered too much, and they should have instead of having her talk about Victorian-related matters, they should have said to those news outlets, "Well, go and talk to Simon. He's our state Senate lead. Go and talk to him. He's the one who's got the inside information, or he's got the knowledge, or it's his state that he's talking about." So, but it was always her, and I think that damaged our campaign because people didn't know we were here. Not enough people knew that we were here. So,
well, that's a bit strange that you got media advisors that don't want to talk to media.
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating at times. Frustrating because and me not being I'm not a media person. Obviously I've done interviews and stuff in the past for Fires and whatever else, and other bits and pieces and documentaries and things like that, as you know. But in that space, I'd never dealt with that side of it, so it would have been good to have some more direction from them and some more appropriate direction. And I don't think we got it, which was a shame. It probably ruined our campaign, to be honest.
So election night, how did that go for you? Not too well, obviously, because you didn't get a seat.
Well, I don't know about that. There's a whole nother story that we could talk about one day. It's probably more of a conspiracy theory type story, but look, election night was interesting. It's a little bit weird when you're a Senate candidate and you see your name on the screen and you can see the numbers going up and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm actually ahead of people here. Like I'm actually, and as you start to knock out current senators, you're like, Jesus Christ, like if I'm knocking people out, maybe I've got a chance here. Maybe, and there were some senators who had been in there for a bit of time who we knocked out. We knocked them out of the race. So it's a pretty good feeling. Obviously, Darren got his seat. Darren was announced, I think, by 9 o'clock or something because he had the most amount of seats, which was fair enough. He had a platform. He had lots of followers. So it was, for him to go into politics, it was almost guaranteed he'd get his seat, I think, initially. But yeah, we went to bed the first night, the first part of the election night. We went to bed and we were tracking okay, but we hadn't been announced. It was still, there was still a lot in it.
A lot of votes to be counted.
A lot of votes to be counted by that stage. And
was it over a week that you were waiting?
Yeah, because Senate candidates normally don't get, Senate results normally don't get known until a week later, generally speaking, because they do all of the lower house, because the lower house seats that they're interested in, that's the one that's going to help form government, obviously, so they only care about that. But sometimes when you've got people like Darren Hinch who have got a big name, then they pay attention to that. So the two states that, in my opinion, on that night that they were paying a lot of attention to was Queensland and Victoria.
Okay. For
the Senate, which was very unusual. They wanted to know if Pauline was going to get in Queensland because it was her comeback story. They wanted to know if she was going to get in. And Darren was in Victoria. And, he's very well known for lots of reasons, for being in prison, for speaking out against, sex crimes and things like that. For he's got obviously his radio show and stuff like that. So people wanted to know if Darren was going to get in. So they were paying a lot of attention to the Senate for the first time. And through that, we were able to see what was happening with us, and we were climbing the ladder. And I think it was midnight. We spoke to the team. I'd congratulated Pauline by that stage because we knew she was in. We knew that her offsider Malcolm Roberts was also in, who was the second candidate for Queensland. We knew that we were tracking okay, and there's still a lot of seats to be taken, Senate seats to be taken in Victoria. But at that stage, we'd also knew that we'd already knocked out a heap of senators. So there was a potential that we were going to get a seat. It was probably, I think 3 or 4 days later when I woke up that morning and the phone was going crazy. And there'd been this announcement very early that morning the media outlets were running that One Nation was going to take a Senate seat in Victoria, that I would be the ninth of 12 senators for Victoria.
Okay.
And I was shocked. And then some stuff happened and I wasn't a senator anymore. 24 hours later, I wasn't a senator anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably a whole nother... That's an episode in itself, I reckon. But that's politics. That's what happens.
Okay.
People make decisions.
So do you reckon your votes disappeared because Pauline Hanson did a deal, or the party did a deal with another mob down here?
Look, I can't say for sure. I can't.
So you weren't aware of that?
I can't.
So you don't know.
I can't say 100%.
What the One Nation preference was after you?
I do, because I was a part of the preference selection.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where preferences get very confusing for people in federal election, particularly that election too, because that election is when they change the preference process.
Okay.
So although we could tell people, and this is where people still get this confused to this day, we could tell people on our voting cards, this is how we want you to vote so that your vote flows in this direction. If we get knocked out, we want it to go this way. But the reality is, the way that the voting preference happened for that election, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the first time in Australia's history this happened, where you could literally control your preference vote the entire way. So if you gave your vote to me and I didn't get in, it couldn't just go to who I selected. You could, if you marked someone else on your form, then it would go to that person that you selected.
If you voted below the line.
If you voted below the line, yeah. So it was not in that case, but there was a lot of confusion in our camp in Victoria and a lot of confusion by other people around the country. And I can say that because I had phone calls from people around the country, other politicians from our party and from outside parties.
Yeah, okay.
Who were very confused about how I could be so far ahead in my Senate seat and then lose it overnight, considering I had knocked out a whole heap of other people along the way. So there was a bit of confusion. We heard some rumours, we heard some stories. It's never been proven. I've never been able to prove it. But I feel like those stories probably are true.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know. I can't say for sure.
Yeah, right.
So I think there might have been literally some politics at play.
Yeah, right. Okay.
There was a certain person here in Victoria who was not happy with my campaign, and he was very threatened by my campaign and threatened by me, and although we play in two different leagues of politics, so to speak, he was very concerned about what my potential influence could be over Victorians. Because we had, and I think you know yourself as you were around, you were... playing, or not playing, but you had a pretty keen interest in following what I was doing at the time.
Trying to understand.
Trying to understand all the process and stuff, and it was a big learning curve for all of us. We had a lot of people tip over from other political parties who came to us. People who in Victoria here, Green supporters saying, absolutely hate Pauline, absolutely hate what your party stands for. But I love you. I think you're great. I think that when you speak and what you're saying and what you want to do makes a heap of sense. So we had people leaving the Greens and the Liberals and Labor and all these other parties. People were Liberal Democrats. People were leaving their parties and joining us in our campaign. I think that shows when that happens that people are listening to the person and can truly believe, can see when someone's genuine. I think that scared a certain politician here in Victoria, and the rumour, what we were able to, I guess, somewhat find out is that individual had probably reached out at the national level and then reached out through other contacts to make a deal to make my votes disappear overnight, and for people to get ahead of me, and then some other weird stuff happened after that as well, which kind of... fed into some of the other information we'd been given. There was some stuff we'd heard, and then I was offered something a few days later, and it all sounded too true and just became really muddied, and so I walked away from it at that time.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Would you do it again?
100%.
Yeah?
Yep.
Would you run for One Nation or
No.
someone different?
Me.
Yep.
I will... I'm not saying I'll do it now. I've got young kids. and I want to spend a lot of time with them whilst they are young. When they get to a point when they're not too fussed about dad being around too much, then I will run again, and I will run under my own party.
Federal or state or both?
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll go for both, but it'll be under my party, and we will build that party up over a couple of years prior to any election, so that we've got good people in the community. We can be really aware of who our candidates are. We can monitor them over a couple of years and see what's going on, make sure we're getting the right people in the role. When I say monitoring, I'm not saying that the party's going to tell them what to do, because that's a big problem with politics these days. But what I mean by monitoring is make sure we've got the right people who fit the values of what the party is for the community. If the community's saying this person's not right, then we have to look at that. So it'll be doing that sort of stuff and bringing what I think should be true and real politics to Australia, which is politicians who actually care about their communities, not care about the money and the tax breaks they're getting and all the bullshit golden handshakes that politicians in this country get now, which is what's destroying this country, because there's a level of corruption there, quite a significant level of corruption. We will bring a true, genuine political party to the forefront for Australia.
Do you have a name for it yet?
I do.
Yeah. Do you want to say it?
No.
No.
No, not yet.
Will it be at the next election or a few years' time?
No, it'll be a few years' time, mate. I get some... yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're right. You choked up.
I'm choking. I've got, I've got a lot going on at the moment. I've got a lot happening in the background. I need to build a lot of those things up and do a lot of those things with the businesses that I own. I need to build those up so that I can then be able to afford to run a political party. Because once you step into that space, if you can't go all in, then you get nowhere.
So you want to do a Clive Palmer?
Yeah, except I want to win. I shouldn't say that, because he's actually got a senator here in Victoria at the last federal election. I can't think what his name is now, but Barrett, I think his name is Barrett, maybe. He's local to us.
Okay.
He seems like a pretty good dude. Actually, I've listened to some of his stuff, and he seems like a really good guy. So, but I mean, again, I don't have an issue with Clive. I think Clive had a lot of really good points, but some of the stuff they said during their campaign I didn't agree with either.
No, it's not that. It was just the fucking ads. Just bright yellow billboards everywhere. Fucking TV ads every couple of seconds. Fucking YouTube ads.
Yeah, and it didn't make...
That got frustrating.
It got frustrating because there was no great value in the ads, is what I found. Like, there was no great... They were saying a lot of things in their ads that they probably knew they couldn't actually achieve. But it was great clickbait, and that's what I don't want. So I want when our party gets launched in many years to come, maybe not that far down the track, because I can't. Can't say it won't be that far down the track because we'll probably start off at the lower levels initially.
Yeah.
And there's an election coming up that we may dabble in at some point. But we want to have good, strong foundations.
What? So you're saying council level? You want to? Yeah.
If you go and have a look at most of the council elections in the last two sets of council elections in this state, most of them have been won by Greens, Labor, or Liberal candidates.
Mm.
So a lot of council elections now are being taken out by candidates of Liberal, Labor, and Green that they have infiltrated that council level. So we will probably start there to get some of our party off the ground and known and running, and then when it's time, we will go for state and federal elections. Exactly when that'll be, I have no idea, but we will do it. It will happen.
You're going to create a little utopia. Starting from council level, work your way up.
Can only hope, mate. Can only hope.
What will that world look like? Well, you heard, if you've listened to this show from episode 2 and 3, you know what the world will eventually turn out like.
I don't say that. People might not vote for us. There'll be people out there who don't want to vote for that.
Yeah,
but no, look, I think it's our plan is, and again, I'm not trying to do anything other than I think we can change the way politics is operating in this country. It needs to go back to being about the people, back to the people who vote. About the community, not about politicians and the media and what they want. It's got to be genuine politics, looking at the issues and dealing with the issues for the entire community, not certain sections of community, which is what the problem is in this country at the moment and has been for a number of years.
All right. Well, before we finish up, I've got 2 more questions. First question is, who is your most trusted news source? Because if you reckon that politics and media
I don't know if
blend well together.
I don't know if I've got one, to be
No?
honest.
Okay.
I don't know if I've got one. I wouldn't say trusted news source, but I would say that I do like Rebel News and Avi Yemeni a fair bit,
Right.
And Rukshan, both from Victoria, because I think that they show both sides of the coin, and they quite often can back up what they're saying with facts, with actual facts, not just what they heard. I'm not saying all the time, and I can't say I've seen all of their content, so there could be stuff out there that they've done that you could argue I haven't seen all their content, but I do think that they're both pretty good, and obviously they came to light during the COVID times. He'd been around a bit longer than that because he'd been doing some politics stuff prior to and some other stuff prior to, and then kind of fell into this media stuff, which I think's been a good thing for him and for people around him and for the community at certain points. But yeah, I don't. I tend to try and find independent news these days because I just don't trust mainstream media, and I can't say that there's a mainstream media outlet that I actually listen to. I watch their articles when they pop up, but I watch them with, and take them with a real grain of salt because I just don't trust it.
Okay.
I don't trust it at all.
And what about your least favourite
ABC.
news source? The ABC.
ABC.
Why ABC?
For a media organisation that I pay for as a taxpayer, they don't deliver me what they should be delivering me. They should be giving me true, hard facts about things. They shouldn't be swayed by the politicians who pay them to be an organisation, which is part of this problem that we have with the ABC. They're paid for by the government using taxpayer-funded money, which is bullshit. As far as I'm concerned, my taxes shouldn't be going to them. If you want to be a media organisation, be a media organisation by yourself. Go off and do it like everyone else does. I shouldn't be paying for it. That money that we spend on them could go towards education for kids, could go towards bettering the health system, bettering our national defences, all that sort of stuff. So much stuff that we need money for right now. Housing for people. And we're in a housing crisis in this country. We don't need to be spending the money we do on the ABC. So I don't like them. I think some of their programs they have for kids are pretty good, but I'm also a little bit concerned about some of the stuff that they're delivering in those programs now as well. Their news in general, we've seen it. How much trouble have they been in over the last few years? I'm not going to mention all the cases, but we know they've been involved in some cases over the last few years which are very questionable. I think that they should be investigated criminally as an organisation, and if found to be doing things illegally or incorrect, or even from a civil perspective, they should be dealt with and shut down.
There you go.
Not sure Ida's going to like us after this, but I don't really care.
Oh, well, you should have...
What about you? What's your favourite media organisation?
The Nine Network, of course.
You do like the Nine Network,
Yeah,
because
the Nine
that's
Network.
connected to 3AW.
Yeah,
isn't it?
3AW,
Yeah,
yep.
so you're a big 3.
So-
I actually don't mind Nine. Like if I had to look at the mainstream media, I used to be a big fan of Sky News, but I'm not a fan of them as much lately. I've found Sky News to be becoming just like the others now, particularly with some of their reporters, and some of their presenters. I used to be a huge fan of Sky News, but really going off them lately, the last 12 months, even 2 years really. I found they changed during COVID. So after that, mainstream, I would probably say Channel 9's probably my next, like the next one I would look at, because I find them to be a little bit more truthful than the other two.
Yeah.
So Channel 10 seems to have died. Have you noticed that? Like they've just dropped off.
I was looking at this the other day on the TV guide. Their news now goes for an hour and a half.
Jesus Christ.
So it starts at 5, finishes at 6:30, then goes straight into fucking the project for an hour.
And that's another,
So that's nearly 2.5. That's
wasted
2.5 hours of news.
yeah. And
How much news do you need?
Why do we still need the project? I don't know. I don't know why we still need that.
Oh, you need it. It's
It's
bringing
great.
entertainment
It's
to
bringing
news.
entertainment, all right. If you want to see all the bullshit on one channel, go to The Project. I reckon that show has been the reason why that organisation's gone downhill.
You reckon?
Anyway. Yeah. Didn't they get sold?
Yeah, the American CBS
Americans
owns
brought
it.
didn't they? Yeah, well, that's...
Which is,
There we go.
I think it's somehow, I don't know how they link it, but yeah, CBS.
Mm.
I don't, yeah.
Who's your least favourite?
Least favourite?
Mm.
No, I don't really have a least favourite.
I
No.
like the ABC.
Okay. I see that, this is the thing. I see the ABC as fair and balanced.
Mm.
Because when you, the content that I consume online, there's people that carry on and complain about the ABC being too left wing. Then there's the other side saying it's too fucking right wing, which there are those arguments. But if you're complaining about it being too far one side and the other fucking side, is that not fair and balanced?
Well, I was
Is that not fair?
yeah,
and
100%.
balanced?
100%. I was going to say to you, when you actually said fair and balanced, I was going to say, I think the big thing with media these days, and it is a community-related issue, not as much a media-related issue, it might be a community problem, but depending on what you absorb and what you want to get out of a story is going to be on how you present that story or how you pass that story on or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's like the Chinese whispers type thing, isn't it? Like I hear this story and I look at it on ABC and I go, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And then I go and tell people that story, but I miss components of it. So then they get it, and then they tell their friends, and my mate said blah, 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 blah. And then it changes over time. It's the same thing with actually watching a program. You and I could sit down and watch the exact same program and come up to completely different interpretations of that program. So what I would like to see more of, though, is, and I do find this with like Q&A is a good example. Q&A, I think, likes to project this belief that it's a well-balanced program, but I don't think it is as balanced as what it is. They always generally have something they want to get to, and they'll do what they can to get to that point. Instead of
you can clearly see that. They want to set someone up.
Yeah, and which I don't think that's right. I think if you're going to have a debate, have a debate and have like a proper debate, and that's it.
And they quickly cut people off.
100%.
But that's the thing.
Just
You've
like our
only
mate
got
Neil.
an hour. Yeah, but Neil's good at it.
The power of the finger.
It
and the
is. But that's, I guess you're right. But with the ABC, I've also consumed radio through that as well. Yep. And so I'm not just being the one person to say,
you're doing a bit of everything.
The TV news is bad, or the online articles are bad, or the radio is bad. I've consumed it on many levels. The only one that I haven't listened to, even ABC Country, I listen to that because they've got country music program. So I consume it.
Oh, country music program is fantastic.
It's ABC Country on digital radio.
Can we stop plugging them? I don't want to plug them. We have our own organisation. We don't need to plug them. Tune in next week when Simon and Haydos do the new Militum Country
The
channel.
Country Hour.
The Country Hour live on your YouTube.
Oh,
I
God.
don't think we can. Can we create our own radio station? We should look into that.
I've always wanted to. It's
do it.
expensive, but
Surely,
I don't know whether
surely
it's
with
expensive
streaming.
nowadays.
Surely with streaming these days, we can make a radio station streaming wise.
we'll see.
Let's look into that. Add that to your list of things to do, producer.
Thanks. But so that's I don't see anyone as bad as a bad news organisation, but I'll consume left wing, right wing, and they all whinge about the ABC, and I just see it all as it must be centred, it must be balanced, because they're both whinging about it. And I did hear bits and pieces that the only way that they sort of get right-wing people to consume ABC content is go far left.
Oh, 100%.
And then so when they get the far left people to consume ABC content, they're listening it because it's all far right stuff.
Yeah.
And so that it's
a
just
mind game.
balance. And that's
mind
it's
game.
just fucking with you.
Yeah.
If you just go through life, don't give a fuck about media and politics, like myself, you go through life fine, carefree.
Yes, but there is a problem there too, though.
Why?
There is
What's
a
the
problem
problem
there
with being like that? I'm not being ignorant.
No.
I'm aware of what's happening.
No, I think that's the point. Yeah, that's the point I would make is that people aren't ignorant, but you have to consume a level of it, and you have to have knowledge of politics, because these days politics is becoming very dangerous and it's becoming very harmful to the community. And we'll talk about this on another podcast for sure, because we'll go through all the stuff that is harmful in that space right now. There's a heap of it happening, but people are getting so over the confusion that the media and the politics drives that they're just voting the way they've always voted and not really looking at the issues, because it's not getting given to them appropriately. So it's not being made available to them to really see all the information, and therefore people keep voting in a particular way, and that's dangerous for the country, because we are seeing that constantly happening now, where people are constantly voting for the same parties over and over again because they just go in, vote, don't care. The politicians aren't going to help me. They're not going to do anything else. I'll just vote for them so I don't get fined. Then we end up with the same politicians, and then the country gets worse, instead of going, you know what? If we actually teach people and really show people about politics, and we have some standards of media, standards for politicians, expectations, and really show what everybody's out there wanting to do, then we'll have better elections and we'll have better politicians, which means our country will thrive. Right now, our country is not thriving, and that is based around media and politics.
Sounds boring.
Yes.
Oh, dear. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. I reckon. So that has been episode 4 of the Staging Area. If you'd like to consume more of our content,
do that.
You can watch full episodes on YouTube and Rumble.
Make sure you subscribe so you can
find
out when new stuff comes out.
You can consume shorter clips of this on TikTok. If you want to send us some hate, fucking do that. It's been quite funny.
Wouldn't be the first
time. What else? There's a Facebook page. Instagram page. Go wherever you want to, and you can follow us there. Stay tuned also if the Simon Roy Lance New World Party is going to start up and come to a council near you.
We'll see. Or maybe Geelong. Geelong's probably an important
G-Town,
one. G-Town's probably an important one, I reckon.
Well, there you go. What's wrong with Geelong?
I think they're still in like administration or whatever.
No, I don't know.
They kicked out what's his name?
The
Darren?
photographer.
Darren.
Yeah, Mohawk bloke.
Yeah, they kicked him out ages ago. I think they're still in administration. That Whittlesea City? They're still in administration.
What, after they kicked out the old copper bloke? What was his name? Simon Overland? No.
Yeah.
Since they kicked him out.
Well, yeah, but their councillors in particular, they kicked all the councillors out and put them in administration. But I think it was around the same time as Overland went.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing. And actually, I've got to say, there was a lot of people who work at the council who actually thought he was really good in that space. So I don't know.
Yeah,
but a lot of people said he was really good. But around the time that he went, the councils went, that was in administration. And I think there's another 1 or 2 councils in Victoria as well that are still in administration.
Yeah, okay.
Haven't had elections. And if you look at some of the Geelong stuff, some of the City of Whittlesea stuff, I don't think they're not getting any better. It's getting worse, right. I think, for some of those areas. So, who knows? Maybe.
Well, there you go. Stay tuned. You'll fucking hear about it here.
We'll announce it here.
Also, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and maybe somewhere else. I'm not all over that yet. I'm only aware of those 2. So if you found us on something else,
let us know.
Let us know. All right, that's been it for the Staging Area this week. I've been Hayden Mack. That's been Simon Roy Lance.
See you, people.
Hooroo.